Right now, beneath the waves, in a place where no sunlight has ever reached, creatures are drifting through water as dark as a dreamless sleep, their bodies glowing with lights they made themselves. Some have been alive for centuries, floating in slow patience, while others are only a few hours old, already learning the silence of the abyss. There are valleys down there deeper than any mountain is tall, and in those valleys, life has found ways to exist that seem almost impossible, almost imaginary, and yet they are real and they are breathing right now as you lie here. Tonight, we explore the quiet life of deep-sea creatures, the strange and gentle beings who have made their home in the darkest corners of our planet. This is science for the sleepy mind, wonders told softly, truths discovered in the places where light cannot go. Welcome to Drowsy Discovery. Over the next 2 hours, over 100 gentle facts will drift toward you like deep-sea snow falling in slow motion through miles of dark water. There is nothing to memorize, nothing to remember. Just listen and let your mind drift. Have you ever wondered what lives in the parts of the ocean we have never seen? You are not alone. Thousands of curious minds are listening alongside you tonight, and if these facts bring you peace, perhaps leave a gentle word in the comments or share this journey with someone who needs a calm place to rest. Take a slow breath now, if you like, and feel your body settle into wherever you are. Let your shoulders soften, let your thoughts slow, let the weight of the day begin to dissolve. The deep sea is patient, and so is this moment. Let us begin. The deep sea begins where sunlight can no longer reach. As you descend through the vast ocean, the light does not simply disappear all at once, but fades slowly, softening from brilliant blue to a dim twilight, until somewhere around 200 meters below the surface, the last visible rays give way to absolute and permanent darkness, and the world you knew transforms into something entirely different, a realm where the familiar rules of light and color no longer apply, where the only brightness comes from within the creatures themselves, and where the pressure, the cold, and the profound silence create conditions that seem almost hostile to life, yet are home to millions of species we are only beginning to understand. This boundary, where the sun's reach finally ends, is not a line but a gentle fading, a threshold you would cross without knowing, like drifting from wakefulness into sleep. Below it, a hidden universe begins. More than 90% of the ocean lies in complete darkness. If you were to divide the ocean into layers based on light, you would find that the bright surface waters we imagine when we think of the sea represent only a thin film compared to the vast darkness beneath. A darkness so complete that it has never known the touch of sunlight, not once in all the billions of years since water first filled the basins of the earth. And within that darkness, life has flourished in ways that challenge everything we thought we knew about what living things require. Creatures that have never seen a sunrise, never felt the warmth of the sun on their skin, yet thrive in numbers beyond counting, drifting and hunting, and reproducing in a world that exists entirely outside the reach of day. When you close your eyes tonight, you will experience something these creatures know intimately, a world defined not by sight, but by other senses. In darkness, different ways of knowing emerge. The pressure at the bottom of the ocean can crush steel. For every 10 meters you descend into the ocean, the weight of the water above you increases by roughly the equivalent of 1 atmosphere, which means that at the deepest points of the sea, nearly 11,000 meters below the surface, the pressure is more than 1,000 times what you feel standing on the shore, a force so immense that it would collapse a submarine designed for shallower waters, would crush the air out of a human body in an instant, would compress steel and glass until they shattered like fragile things, and yet within this crushing environment, soft-bodied creatures drift peacefully, their tissues saturated with water at the same pressure as the world around them, balanced as perfectly as a sleeper resting on a still night. What seems impossible from where we stand is simply normal there. Pressure is only violence when it meets resistance. Deep-sea creatures have bones that bend rather than break. The skeletons of deep-sea fish have evolved over many millions of years to withstand pressures that would shatter the rigid bones of surface creatures. And they have done so not by becoming harder, but by becoming softer, more porous, more flexible, filled with cartilage and reduced mineral content, so that they can compress slightly under the weight of the water without splintering, bending like green branches rather than snapping like dry wood. And this flexibility allows them to move through their environment with a kind of graceful ease that seems almost dreamlike, their entire bodies perfectly suited to a world where rigidity would be fatal, where yielding is survival, where softness is strength. There is quiet wisdom in this remarkable adaptation, a lesson the deep has taught across countless ages. Sometimes the things that bend are the things that endure. Most deep-sea animals have no swim bladders because they would implode. In shallower waters, many fish use a gas-filled organ called a swim bladder to control their buoyancy, inflating it to rise and deflating it to sink. But in the deep sea, where the pressure is so extreme that any pocket of gas would be instantly crushed, this structure has been abandoned almost entirely, and the creatures who live there have found other ways to move through the water column, storing oils in their tissues that are lighter than seawater, developing bodies made mostly of water and gelatinous flesh. Reducing their muscle mass to conserve energy and lighten their load, drifting rather than swimming, floating rather than fighting the current. They have surrendered the need for buoyancy control, and in doing so have made themselves more suited to their world. What seems like a loss is actually a liberation. They are free from the burden of staying afloat. The temperature near the seafloor hovers just above freezing. In most of the deep ocean, far from the warmth of hydrothermal vents and the sun-baked surface, the water rests at temperatures between 1 and 4 degrees Celsius, a cold so consistent and unwavering that it has remained nearly unchanged for tens of millions of years, a deep and penetrating chill that slows the metabolism of every creature living within it, stretching their lifespans dramatically, reducing their need for food, allowing them to survive on tiny amounts of energy in a world where meals are rare and precious. This profound coldness is not harsh in the way winter feels to us, but rather a stillness, a slowing down, a kind of permanent quietude that shapes the rhythm of everything that lives there, from the slowest pulse of a jellyfish's bell to the patient drift of a shark circling through the dark water. In this cold, time itself moves differently. Everything rests, even while living. And from the crushing cold of the abyss, we turn to the creatures who glow within it. Bioluminescence is the most common form of communication in the deep. In a world without sunlight, where darkness is the only constant and sound travels strangely through the dense water, creatures have developed a language made entirely of light, chemical reactions within their bodies producing soft glows and sudden flashes that can attract mates, warn rivals, confuse predators, or lure prey ever closer. And this living light is so prevalent in the deep sea that if you were to drift through the abyss with perfectly adapted eyes, you would see the darkness peppered with tiny glowing stars, each one a creature speaking in a language far older than any spoken word, a silent conversation happening all around you in pulses and flickers and steady gleams. We use words and gestures, but down there in the darkness, meaning travels only as light through the dark. Communication finds a way, even in the deepest silence. More than 70% of deep-sea animals can produce their own light. The ability to generate light is not a rare gift in the deep ocean, but rather the norm, the standard equipment for survival in a realm entirely without sun. And the creatures who possess it are astonishingly diverse, from fish to squid to shrimp to jellyfish to worms, each producing light through chemical processes that create almost no heat, cold flames that burn within their flesh, glowing organs arranged along their bodies in patterns as unique as fingerprints. And together they quietly transform the lightless ocean into a kind of scattered constellation, a living galaxy where every single point of light is a creature going about its daily life, signaling, searching, surviving. If you could see this world, you would realize that the deep sea is not truly dark at all. It glows from within, lit by its own inhabitants. The ocean makes its own gentle stars. The anglerfish uses a glowing lure to attract prey in total darkness. The female anglerfish, one of the most recognizable creatures of the deep, carries on her forehead a modified fin spine that extends outward like a fishing rod, and at its tip, a fleshy bulb filled with bioluminescent bacteria glows softly in the blackness, a tiny lantern waving gently in the current, irresistible to smaller fish and shrimp who swim toward it thinking they have found food or perhaps a mate, or simply curious about this solitary point of light in a vast and endless darkness. And as they approach, the anglerfish waits with infinite patience, her enormous mouth capable of opening so quickly and so wide that her prey is swallowed before it even knows what has happened. She does not chase her meals, but calls them to her, offering a glimmer of light in exchange for life. In the deep and lightless ocean, patience is the greatest predator of all. Some creatures flash light to confuse predators and escape. When a predator approaches in the darkness of the deep sea, some creatures respond not by fleeing immediately, but by releasing a sudden burst of bioluminescent light, a dazzling flash that blinds or startles the attacker, or by ejecting a cloud of glowing particles that hang in the water like a luminous decoy, a false target that draws the predator's attention while the real creature slips away into the safety of the surrounding dark. And this strategy, which scientists sometimes call a burglar alarm display, can also attract larger predators who might eat the original attacker, turning the threat into an unexpected opportunity. Light, in these moments, is both shield and weapon, as versatile as any claw or tooth, a quiet reminder that in the deep ocean, survival depends on cleverness as much as strength. Even light itself can become a form of escape. The firefly squid can produce light from thousands of tiny organs. Along the coast of Japan, where the continental shelf drops into deeper water, the firefly squid rises each spring in numbers so vast that the sea itself seems to glow with an otherworldly blue light. And this small creature, no larger than a human finger, carries thousands of photophores, tiny light-producing organs scattered across its skin, tentacles, and eyes, each capable of creating its own soft blue glow. And together they allow the squid to communicate with others, attract tiny prey, and camouflage itself against the faint light filtering from above by matching its own glow to the brightness of the surface, becoming invisible to predators below. For a few weeks each year, these remarkable and extraordinary creatures turn the coastal waters into a living constellation of soft and shimmering blue light. Then they sink back into the darkness from which they came. Deep-sea dragonfish have headlights that shine in red, invisible to most other creatures. Most deep-sea creatures see only in blue and green wavelengths, because these are the colors that bioluminescence produces and the colors that travel farthest through water. But the dragonfish has evolved a secret weapon, specialized photophores beneath its eyes that produce a focused beam of red light, a color so rare in the deep that most other animals cannot even perceive it. And this allows the dragonfish to illuminate its surroundings without alerting its prey. Like a hunter carrying an invisible torch through a dark forest, seeing everything clearly while remaining completely unseen, approaching its victims before they even know danger is near. It is a form of vision that exists entirely outside the perception of nearly every other creature around it. The dragonfish hunts in a color that only it can see. And now, from the light makers, we turn to the hunters who wait in silence. The viperfish has teeth so long it cannot close its mouth. The viperfish is one of the most fearsome-looking creatures in the deep, though it rarely grows longer than 30 centimeters, and its most defining feature is a set of long needle-like teeth that curve outward from its jaws at such extreme angles that they simply cannot fit inside its mouth when closed, giving the fish a perpetual grimace that would seem terrifying if you could see it in the total darkness where it lives. And these remarkable teeth are not meant for chewing, but for trapping, locking around prey so securely that escape becomes utterly impossible. The viperfish's hinged skull, allowing it to open its enormous jaws wide enough to swallow creatures nearly as large as itself whole. This strange and striking appearance is not a flaw, but rather a clear and elegant perfection of evolutionary design. Every single angle of those teeth serves survival in the lightless depths. The gulper eel can swallow prey much larger than itself. The gulper eel, sometimes called the pelican eel for the enormous pouch-like mouth that makes up most of its body, drifts through the deep with a jaw that can unhinge and expand to swallow prey several times larger than its own head, its stomach stretching to accommodate incredible meals that seem impossible for such a slender creature. And this adaptation exists because food in the deep sea is desperately scarce and deeply unpredictable, and a hunter that can consume any opportunity that comes its way. No matter the size, is a hunter that survives the long stretches of emptiness between meals. The gulper eel does not chase its prey with speed, but waits patiently and engulfs with sudden precision, its body little more than a mouth attached to a whip-like tail that propels it slowly through the endless dark. Down here, in this world of profound scarcity, the ability to swallow everything is the ability to eat at all. Fangtooth fish have the largest teeth relative to body size of any fish in the ocean. Despite their frightening name and appearance, fangtooth fish are surprisingly small, rarely growing longer than 17 centimeters, but their teeth are so disproportionately large that if a human had teeth in the same ratio, they would extend well past the chin. And these fearsome fangs have evolved to ensure that any prey caught in the fangtooth's bite has no chance of escape in a world where meals may be weeks or even months apart, and missing one could mean slow starvation. The upper jaw of the fangtooth has special pockets to accommodate the lower teeth when the mouth closes, a design that allows those terrifying fangs to exist without piercing through the fish's own skull. Even in the total darkness of the deep ocean, where no eye can see them and no light ever reaches, these teeth do their patient and silent work. Form follows function perfectly in the deep. And as you rest with these thoughts, let them pass through you like currents in deep water. There is no need to hold on to them. Breathe slowly if you wish, and feel yourself drifting a little deeper into stillness. The black swallower can eat prey twice its length and 10 times its mass. The black swallower is a small deep-sea fish with an ability that seems to defy the very laws of biology, for it can consume prey far larger than itself, its lower jaw unhinging, its stomach expanding like a balloon to accommodate a meal that may weigh 10 times more than the predator itself. The swallowed fish, sometimes visible through the distended belly as a dark shape slowly being digested over days or weeks in the lightless water. This extreme adaptation exists because at the depths where the black swallower lives, food is so scarce and rare that refusing any meal, no matter how large or unwieldy, could mean slow starvation, and so the fish has evolved to become a stomach with fins attached, a creature whose entire body serves the single purpose of consuming whatever comes near. In scarcity, excess becomes necessary for survival. Deep-sea predators often have expandable stomachs to survive long gaps between meals. In the sunlit waters near the surface, food is relatively abundant, and predators can afford to be selective, to wait patiently for the right opportunity. But in the deep sea, where days or weeks or even months may pass between encounters with prey, the ability to consume and store food becomes absolutely critical for survival. And so many deep-sea predators have developed stomachs that can stretch to enormous sizes, allowing them to gorge when food is available and then slowly digest their meal over extended periods, their metabolism slowed by the cold water around them, their bodies entering a kind of dormant state as they wait for the next opportunity to feed. This patience is not passivity at all. It is the deepest form of endurance, written into the very tissues of these creatures. They survive by making each moment of abundance last. Some deep-sea sharks grow so slowly they may live for centuries. In the cold, dark waters of the deep ocean, where food is scarce and metabolism runs at a fraction of its surface speed, some species of sharks have evolved lifespans that stretch across centuries, growing so slowly that they may add less than a centimeter to their length each year, reaching maturity only after 100 years or more, and continuing to drift through the darkness for many decades beyond that, their ancient eyes watching a world that changes far faster than they do. Scientists believe that some of these sharks alive today were born before the Industrial Revolution, before the World Wars, before the age of electricity, swimming through the same eternal darkness that their great-great-grandparents knew long before us. They have witnessed time from a perspective we can barely begin to imagine. Their patience outlasts generations. And from the hunters of the deep, we drift toward creatures of great size and mystery. The giant squid can grow longer than a bus. For centuries, the giant squid was a creature of legend, a terrifying sea monster that sailors spoke of in hushed and fearful tones. And though we now know it to be real, it remains one of the most mysterious and elusive animals on Earth, capable of reaching lengths of 13 meters or more from the tip of its mantle to the ends of its long feeding tentacles, drifting through the middle depths of the vast ocean where light barely penetrates, hunting fish and other squid with arms lined with powerful suckers, each one ringed with sharp serrations that leave circular scars on the skin of the sperm whales that hunt them in turn. We have seen giant squid only rarely, most of them dead or dying when they reach human eyes, their living behavior still largely a mystery hidden somewhere in the dark water. They remain creatures more imagined than truly observed by humankind. Their very existence still feels almost completely mythical. Giant squid eyes are the size of dinner plates. The eyes of a giant squid are among the largest in the animal kingdom, measuring up to 27 centimeters across, roughly the size of a dinner plate, and they have evolved to this enormous size not to see in color or fine detail, but to gather every possible photon of light in an environment where illumination is almost non-existent, allowing the squid to detect the faint bioluminescent glow of predators approaching from hundreds of meters away, particularly the sperm whales that descend from the surface to hunt them. These eyes are not just sensors, but survival tools, the difference between detecting danger in time to flee and being caught unaware in the darkness, and they speak to the immense selective pressure that has shaped life in the deep. Where light is precious, eyes grow to hold as much of it as possible. Even giants need to see what hunts them. The colossal squid has rotating hooks on its tentacles. The colossal squid, found in the cold waters around Antarctica, is not only one of the largest invertebrates on Earth, but also one of the most formidably armed. For unlike the giant squid, whose suckers are lined with small teeth, the colossal squid possesses sharp hooks on its tentacles that can swivel and rotate freely, digging into prey and holding fast with a grip that becomes tighter the more the victim struggles. A design so effective that even the sperm whales that hunt these creatures bear scars from the encounter, round marks and scratches on their skin that tell of battles fought in total darkness hundreds of meters below the surface. These rotating hooks are weapons of last resort, the colossal squid's final defense against predators far larger than itself. In the deep and lightless ocean, even the hunted can fight back with surprising and formidable ferocity. they are truly formidable survivors. Giant isopods can survive years without eating. The giant isopod is a creature that looks like something from a distant geological age, a large pill bug grown to the size of a football, scuttling slowly across the seafloor in search of whatever scraps of food drift down from the sunlit world above. And these strange crustaceans have developed metabolisms so incredibly slow that they can survive for many years without eating a single meal. Their bodies entering a state of near hibernation that conserves energy until the next carcass or piece of marine snow happens to land within reach. In aquariums, giant isopods have refused food for over 5 years and still survived, their patience almost incomprehensible to creatures like us who need to eat every single day. They have learned to wait in ways that make our human impatience seem almost childlike and hurried by comparison. Time truly moves differently for these ancient creatures. The giant Pacific octopus is considered one of the most intelligent invertebrates. The giant Pacific octopus can grow to enormous sizes, with arms spanning over 5 meters. But what makes this remarkable creature truly extraordinary is not its size, but its incredible and complex mind. For octopuses have demonstrated remarkable problem-solving abilities, short and long-term memory, the capacity to learn by watching other octopuses, and even what some scientists cautiously describe as play, manipulating objects with no apparent purpose other than curiosity. And this intelligence has evolved entirely separately from our own, a different kind of mind shaped by a different kind of underwater world. Each of its 8 arms contains a cluster of neurons that allows it to act somewhat independently, yet the whole animal moves with purpose and apparent intention. It is proof that intelligence can take forms we barely recognize. Thinking lives in many shapes. Japanese spider crabs have legs that can span nearly 4 meters. The Japanese spider crab is the largest known arthropod on Earth. Its remarkably long and spindly legs capable of spanning nearly 4 meters from tip to tip, though its body itself is relatively small, barely the size of a basketball, and it moves across the ocean floor like a walking piece of architecture, picking its way slowly and quite deliberately through the mud and debris, feeding on whatever dead or decaying matter it can find along the way. These crabs can live for up to 100 years, growing slowly in the cold waters where they dwell, molting their shells periodically to accommodate their increasing size, and they are often covered with sponges and other organisms that attach to their shells for protection. Despite their intimidating appearance, they are gentle scavengers, not aggressive predators. Their great size is not for hunting, but simply for reaching across the deep. And now we turn from giants to creatures so small they are nearly invisible. Marine snow is a constant rain of tiny particles falling through the deep. Throughout the ocean, at every depth, a slow and constant snowfall drifts downward through the water, not frozen water but organic particles. The dead bodies of plankton, the shed skin of larger animals, fragments of feces, abandoned mucus houses built by tiny creatures to filter food. And this endless and patient drift is called marine snow, and it is the primary source of food for most life in the deep sea. A steady but sparse supply of nutrients that takes days or even weeks to fall from the sunlit surface to the darkest depths below, decomposing as it descends, becoming less nutritious the deeper it travels. If you could watch it with perfectly adapted eyes, you would see the entire ocean filled with this silent and gentle precipitation, a snowstorm that has been falling since life began. It is the gentle rain that never stops, the quiet sustenance of the abyss. On it, the deep ocean depends for everything. Many deep-sea creatures survive by filtering marine snow from the water. Rather than actively hunting or scavenging, many creatures of the deep have evolved to simply wait with open mouths or extended feeding apparatuses, filtering the sparse particles of marine snow from the water as it drifts slowly past. a strategy that requires almost no energy expenditure and can be sustained indefinitely in the cold, slow world of the abyss. And you can find this approach in creatures ranging from tiny copepods to enormous basket stars that spread their branching arms like delicate nets across the current. This passive feeding is not laziness, but the deepest form of efficiency, a profound recognition that in a world where food is scarce and energy must be conserved, the best strategy is often to do as little as possible while still gathering what you need. Patience becomes the most reliable and enduring form of sustenance. Some deep-sea worms are thinner than a human hair. In the sediment of the deep ocean floor, creatures so small they are almost entirely invisible go about their lives in the spaces between grains of sand. And some of these are worms, thread-like animals thinner than a human hair, burrowing through the dark mud in search of bacteria and slowly decaying organic matter. Their bodies so slender that they can pass through gaps that would stop any larger creature entirely. These tiny worms are not rare exceptions, but an enormous and essential part of the deep-sea ecosystem, their combined biomass exceeding that of many larger and more visible animals, and they play a critical role in breaking down organic matter and recycling nutrients back into the food web that sustains everything living above them. We rarely think of them because we rarely see them, but the deep is full of these hidden and tireless workers. Small does not mean insignificant. Deep-sea amphipods have been found feeding in the deepest trenches. Amphipods are small crustaceans, distant relatives of the shrimp you might find in a rock pool, and they have been found at the very bottom of the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters below the surface, thriving in conditions that would crush most life instantly, feeding on the scraps of organic matter that drift down from the world above. Their pale bodies, adapted to complete darkness and pressures more than 1,000 times greater than at sea level. Scientists have lowered baited cameras into the deepest trenches and watched as swarms of amphipods appear within just a few hours, evidence of a thriving and active community at depths we once assumed were completely lifeless. They have shown us that no corner of the ocean is truly empty, no matter how hostile or remote it seems. Where there is water, life will always find a way to fill it. Microscopic copepods form the foundation of the deep-sea food web. Copepods are tiny crustaceans, most no larger than a small grain of rice, and they are among the most abundant animals on Earth, drifting through every layer of the ocean in numbers almost too large to comprehend. And in the deep sea, they form the very foundation of the food web, eating bacteria and organic particles and being eaten in turn by everything from small fish to giant filter feeders. Their tiny bodies carrying energy from the smallest producers to the largest consumers in the entire ecosystem. Without copepods, the entire structure of ocean life would collapse entirely, for they are the link that connects the microscopic world to everything above it in the food chain. They are overlooked precisely because they are everywhere, too common to seem important, too small to truly notice. But the entire ocean runs on their quiet and endless labor. Foraminifera are single-celled organisms that build intricate shells on the seafloor. Foraminifera are among the smallest architects in the ocean, single-celled organisms that construct elaborate and beautiful shells from calcium carbonate or cemented sand grains. And when they die, these shells drift down to the seafloor and accumulate over millions of years, forming thick layers of ooze that eventually become limestone and chalk. The white cliffs of Dover and countless other rock formations having begun as the tiny homes of creatures too small to see without a microscope. Scientists use foraminifera fossils to study past climates, for the chemistry of their shells records the temperature and composition of ancient oceans with remarkable precision. They have been building and dying and accumulating for hundreds of millions of years, their tiny lives leaving a record written in stone. The Earth remembers them even if we do not. And from the smallest drifters, we turn to the strange landscapes where life gathers. Hydrothermal vents support entire ecosystems without sunlight. In the deepest and most remote parts of the ocean, where no light has ever reached and darkness is absolute and permanent, cracks in the seafloor release superheated water rich with minerals and chemicals from the Earth's molten interior. And around these hydrothermal vents, entire ecosystems have evolved that owe nothing to the sun, thriving communities of life, sustained entirely by bacteria that convert chemical energy into food. Supporting tube worms and crabs and fish, and countless other creatures in oases of warmth amid the freezing dark. When scientists first discovered these remarkable vents in the late 1970s, it changed everything we thought we knew about life's basic requirements, proving that photosynthesis was not the only foundation for a food web. Life does not need sunlight. It only needs energy, and the Earth itself can provide that gift. Vent water can reach temperatures above 300 degrees Celsius. The water that erupts from hydrothermal vents can be superheated to temperatures far above the boiling point of water at the surface, sometimes exceeding 370 degrees Celsius, and yet it does not boil because of the immense pressure at these crushing depths. Pressure that keeps the water in its liquid state, even as it carries dissolved metals and minerals that precipitate out when they meet the cold surrounding seawater, forming the black smoker chimneys that rise like dark towers from the seafloor. If you were to touch this water, it would scald instantly, yet creatures live just centimeters away from this lethal heat, their bodies positioned precisely at the narrow boundary where the temperature becomes bearable. They have found the edge between destruction and survival in this harsh and extreme world. They're at that precarious threshold. They make their homes and thrive. Tube worms near vents can grow over 2 meters tall. The giant tube worm is one of the most remarkable creatures found at hydrothermal vents. A worm without a mouth, without a gut, without any way to eat at all, yet capable of growing over 2 meters tall in dense clusters around the vent openings. Its blood-red feathery plume extending gracefully into the mineral-rich water to absorb hydrogen sulfide, which it then delivers to billions of bacteria living inside its body. Bacteria that convert the chemical into energy and in return provide nourishment for the worm. This extraordinary partnership, this intimate symbiosis, allows the tube worm to thrive in one of the most extreme environments on Earth, rooted in place like a strange and beautiful flower in a garden of perpetual darkness. It has found a way to survive by hosting another form of life within itself. Together, in this remarkable partnership, they are neither alone nor hungry in the depths. Vent shrimp survive by eating bacteria that grow on chemicals in the water. Clustered in writhing masses around the openings of hydrothermal vents, vent shrimp spend their lives grazing on the bacterial mats that coat everything the heated water touches, their mouths constantly working to scrape up the microscopic life that grows abundantly on the minerals. And though they have no eyes in the traditional sense, many species have developed light-sensitive patches on their backs that can detect the faint infrared glow emitted by the superheated water, allowing them to navigate safely toward the warmth without straying too close and being boiled alive. They live on the edge of destruction, feeding on life that grows at the border between the habitable and the lethal, a constant and careful dance of proximity and retreat. Their entire world is measured in centimeters. A few steps in the wrong direction means death. Cold seeps are underwater springs where methane and hydrogen sulfide escape from the seafloor. Unlike the violent heat of hydrothermal vents, cold seeps are places where chemicals from beneath the seafloor escape slowly and steadily through cracks in the sediment, sometimes forming strange pools of brine so dense that they rest on the ocean floor like underwater lakes. And around these seeps, extraordinary communities of life have evolved that mirror those at hydrothermal vents. sustained by the same chemosynthetic bacteria. Hosting tube worms and mussels and crabs that have adapted to thrive in the presence of methane and hydrogen sulfide that would be toxic to most other forms of life. These remarkable ecosystems can persist for thousands of years, slow and steady compared to the explosive energy of vents above. In the deep ocean, patience can create worlds as rich as any oasis. Life gathers wherever chemistry allows. Whale falls are the bodies of dead whales that become ecosystems for decades. When a whale dies and its massive body sinks slowly to the seafloor, it becomes what scientists call a whale fall, a sudden and enormous gift of nutrients to a world where food is desperately scarce. And this enormous carcass will support a succession of different communities over many decades. First, the mobile scavengers like hagfish and sleeper sharks that strip the soft flesh away. Then the enrichment opportunists that colonize the exposed bones. And finally, the sulfophilic bacteria that feed on the fats and oils soaking into the surrounding sediment, creating miniature ecosystems that can persist for 50 years or more. A single death becomes decades of new life, a slow-motion feast that transforms the darkness of the abyss into unexpected abundance. In the deep, nothing is ever wasted. Even endings become new beginnings. A single whale carcass can support thousands of species. Studies of whale falls have recorded more than 400 species living on a single carcass, from the enormous to the microscopic, from the vertebrate to the invertebrate, from creatures that arrive in the first days to those that colonize only after years of slow decomposition, have prepared the way, and many of these species are found nowhere else on Earth. Specialists that have evolved to exploit this particular and peculiar resource. Drifting through the vast ocean from whale fall to whale fall across distances that should make such a lifestyle seem utterly impossible, yet succeeding nonetheless against all odds. The whale in death becomes a world unto itself, a small planet of life in the vast and silent emptiness of the deep sea. Some creatures spend their entire existence on just one body. A single death can hold entire generations of new life. And from these oases of life, we drift toward creatures of adaptation and survival. The Greenland shark may be the longest-lived vertebrate on Earth. The Greenland shark drifts through the cold, dark waters of the North Atlantic at speeds slower than a human walks. Its metabolism so profoundly reduced by the frigid temperatures that it may take well over 100 years to reach sexual maturity. And scientists estimate that some individuals alive today may be over 400 years old, making them potentially the longest-lived vertebrates ever known to science. A shark born during the reign of King James I could still be swimming now. Its ancient body carrying 4 centuries of existence through waters it has known longer than any human civilization has existed in its present form. To meet such a creature would be to meet living history itself, a witness to ages we can only read about in books. Time, for the Greenland shark, has become something entirely different and almost incomprehensible. Some Greenland sharks alive today were born before Shakespeare. When scientists used radiocarbon dating on the eye lenses of Greenland sharks, which form in the first years of life and remain unchanged thereafter throughout their existence, they discovered that some of these ancient and extraordinary sharks had been born in the 16th century, swimming through waters that would later see the arrival of European explorers, the founding of new colonies, the Industrial Revolution, and the entire modern age. All while the same shark continued its slow and patient patrol through the cold and silent deep, completely unaware of the revolutions happening in the world above. These remarkable creatures have outlived entire dynasties, empires, and countless human generations, their patience so profound that it makes our concept of a human lifetime seem almost hurried. They remind us that longevity is possible. We simply do not have the patience for it. Deep-sea creatures often have transparent or red bodies to stay invisible. In a world where the only light comes from the creatures themselves, being visible can mean being eaten, and so many deep-sea animals have evolved bodies that are either completely transparent, allowing what little light there is to pass straight through them without reflection, or colored in deep reds that appear black in the absence of red light, making them effectively invisible against the dark water around them. Jellyfish, shrimp, fish, and countless other creatures drift through the lightless abyss like ghosts, their internal organs sometimes the only visible part of their bodies, dark spots floating in otherwise invisible flesh. They have learned to hide by becoming nothing, by erasing themselves from the visual field of hungry predators who hunt in the darkness. In the deep ocean, the best camouflage is simply to not exist at all. Let these thoughts rest lightly upon you now, like marine snow drifting through silent water. Take a slow breath, release any tension from your hands and jaw, and let yourself surrender a little more to the peace of this moment. The barrel-eye fish has a transparent head, so it can look upward through its own skull. The barrel-eye fish possesses one of the most extraordinary adaptations in the entire animal kingdom. A head that is completely transparent, filled with clear fluid that allows its tubular green eyes to rotate freely and look straight upward through its own skull, scanning the waters above for the silhouettes of prey and the bioluminescent flashes of potential food sources. This remarkable fish lives in the twilight zone, where the last traces of sunlight still filter down from above, and its upward-pointing eyes allow it to spot the shadows of small creatures swimming overhead against the faint light, a hunting strategy perfectly suited to a world where most light comes from above. The transparent dome protects its sensitive eyes while giving it a field of vision unlike any other creature. It sees the world through its own head, as though looking through a window into the sky above. The Dumbo octopus flaps ear-like fins to glide through the deep. Deep in the ocean, at depths where light has never reached, the Dumbo octopus drifts through the darkness like a creature from a gentle dream, propelling itself by flapping two large fins that sit atop its head like the ears of an elephant, moving through the water with a grace and slowness that seems perfectly suited to the stillness of the abyss. Unlike their shallow water relatives that jet propel through the sea, Dumbo octopuses have embraced a gentler way of moving, a patient gliding that conserves energy in a world where food is scarce and survival depends on efficiency. These soft-bodied creatures lack the hard beak of other octopuses, swallowing their prey whole, and they hover above the seafloor searching for worms and small crustaceans with movements so delicate they seem almost weightless. They are among the deepest living octopuses ever found. Down there in that endless dark, they fly. Deep-sea jellyfish can live for months without food. In the darkness of the deep ocean, where food drifts down from above in unpredictable and infrequent pulses, jellyfish have evolved to survive on almost nothing, their simple bodies requiring so little energy that they can go months between meals, drifting through the void like patient ghosts waiting for something edible to brush against their trailing tentacles. Their metabolism slows to a crawl, their movements become minimal, and their entire existence becomes an exercise in waiting, a patience so profound that it would be unimaginable to most other creatures. When food does arrive, they consume it efficiently, storing energy for the long stretches of emptiness that will inevitably follow. They have mastered the art of living slowly, of needing almost nothing to persist. In a world of scarcity, they have learned that survival belongs to those who can wait the longest. Their patience is measured in seasons. The vampire squid turns itself inside out when threatened. Despite its fearsome name, the vampire squid is a gentle creature that feeds on marine snow and detritus drifting down from above. And when threatened by a predator, it performs one of the most unusual defensive displays in the entire ocean. turning its webbed arms inside out over its body to reveal a forest of fleshy spines and bioluminescent photophores that flash in confusing patterns, transforming itself from a small, soft creature into something spiky and disorienting. This pineapple posture, as scientists call it, is designed not to hurt but to confuse, giving the vampire squid time to drift away into the darkness while its attacker tries to make sense of what it has encountered. Unlike true squids, the vampire squid cannot jet away at high speed, so it has evolved deception instead of escape. In the deep ocean, sometimes the best defense is simply to become something unrecognizable. It survives by being strange. Some sea cucumbers can expel their own organs to distract predators. When attacked by a predator, certain species of deep-sea sea cucumbers perform an act of extreme self-sacrifice, expelling their internal organs through their body wall in a sticky, tangled mass that can entangle a predator's mouth or gills, giving the sea cucumber time to crawl away to safety while the attacker struggles with this unexpected defense. These expelled organs, which can include the respiratory tree and parts of the digestive system, are not lost forever, for the sea cucumber will regenerate them over the following weeks and months, growing back everything it sacrificed to survive another day. It is a strategy that seems desperate but is remarkably effective, trading temporary loss for continued existence. They give away parts of themselves so they might live to be whole again. In the deep, survival sometimes means becoming less than you were. The hagfish produces enough slime to clog a predator's gills. The hagfish is one of the oldest and strangest creatures in the sea, and when threatened, it releases a remarkable defensive weapon, a slime so abundant and so effective that it can fill the gills of any fish that tries to bite it, forcing the predator to release its grip or risk suffocating on the sticky substance. A single hagfish can produce enough slime to fill a bucket in mere seconds, the mucus expanding rapidly when mixed with seawater to create a gelatinous mass that clogs and smothers anything caught within it. Once the danger has passed, the hagfish ties itself in a knot and slides through the loop, scraping the slime from its own body so it can swim freely again. It has found safety in being profoundly unpleasant to eat. This ancient defense has served the hagfish well for hundreds of millions of years. Few predators make the same mistake twice. And from these survival strategies, we drift toward the senses of the deep. Many deep-sea fish have evolved to detect bioluminescent flashes. In the eternal darkness of the deep ocean, where no sunlight penetrates and the only illumination comes from living creatures, many fish have evolved eyes sensitive to the blue-green wavelengths of bioluminescent light, able to detect the faintest flash or glow across distances that would be invisible to any surface creature. These specialized eyes can spot the lure of an anglerfish, the defensive flash of a frightened squid, or the courtship display of a potential mate, all from the tiny points of living light that flicker through the darkness like stars in an underground sky. Some species have developed yellow filters in their eyes that block out blue light, allowing them to see the red bioluminescence that most other fish cannot detect, giving them a secret communication channel invisible to predators. In a world without sunlight, they have learned to see by the light of life itself. The lateral line system allows deep-sea fish to feel vibrations in the water. Running along the sides of most fish is a sensory organ called the lateral line, a series of tiny hair cells that detect vibrations and pressure changes in the surrounding water. And in the deep sea, where vision is often useless, this sense has become extraordinarily refined, allowing fish to feel the movements of prey and predators through the water itself. A fish swimming in total darkness can sense the pressure wave of an approaching predator, the tiny vibrations of a shrimp walking on the seafloor, or the disturbance created by another fish swimming nearby, building a picture of its environment through touch at a distance. This ancient sense, older than eyes themselves, has become the primary way that many deep-sea creatures navigate their world, feeling their way through the darkness. They hear the water moving around them. Some deep-sea creatures have no eyes at all. In the deepest parts of the ocean, where light has been absent for so long that generations beyond counting have never experienced it, some creatures have lost their eyes entirely, their bodies no longer investing energy in developing and maintaining organs that serve no purpose in perpetual darkness. Where their ancestors once had eyes, they now have smooth skin or enhanced sensory organs that detect vibrations, chemicals, or electrical fields, senses far more useful than vision in a world without light. This loss of eyes is not a deficiency, but an adaptation, a streamlining of the body toward what actually matters in their environment, a trade of one sense for the enhancement of others. They have found that seeing is not essential to living. In the deep, they navigate by touch, by taste, by the subtle currents of the water around them. Their world is built from senses we can barely imagine. Others have enormous eyes to gather every available photon of light. While some deep-sea creatures have abandoned vision entirely, others have taken the opposite approach, developing eyes so large that they dominate their heads, pupils dilated to their maximum extent, gathering every scattered photon of bioluminescent light that flickers through the darkness. The giant squid has the largest eyes of any living animal, each one the size of a dinner plate, evolved specifically to detect the faint glow of sperm whales descending from above, giving the squid precious seconds to attempt an escape. These massive eyes are incredibly sensitive, capable of detecting light levels that would appear as complete darkness to human vision. They have turned their bodies into light-gathering instruments, sacrificing other features to make room for organs of pure perception. In the twilight realm, big eyes mean the difference between eating and being eaten. The giant squid has the largest eyes in the animal kingdom. Deep beneath the surface, in the cold and lightless waters where sperm whales hunt, the giant squid drifts through the darkness with eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes of any animal that has ever lived, evolved over millions of years to detect the faintest bioluminescent glow of approaching predators. Each eye can measure up to 27 centimeters across, with pupils that dilate to gather every available photon from the surrounding darkness, allowing the squid to see the subtle disturbance that announces a whale descending from above. These enormous organs are marvels of biological engineering, containing millions of light-sensitive cells arranged to maximize sensitivity in conditions where vision should be impossible. In the deep ocean, where light is the rarest of resources, the giant squid has devoted an extraordinary portion of its body to the act of seeing. Its eyes are windows into an alien world. Deep-sea snailfish have ears adapted to hear the faintest sounds. In the crushing depths, where the snailfish makes its home, sound travels differently than it does near the surface, and these remarkable fish have evolved inner ears of extraordinary sensitivity, capable of detecting the faintest vibrations that ripple through the water from great distances. Some species of snailfish live deeper than any other fish, thriving at pressures that would crush most submarines, and in this extreme environment, their ears have become their primary sense, allowing them to hear the movements of prey and predators long before any other sense could detect them. The sound waves travel through their bodies almost as easily as through water, and their internal ears transform these vibrations into meaningful information about the world around them. They listen to the deep. In a world of absolute darkness, hearing becomes the most important way of knowing what lurks nearby. And from the world of senses, we turn to the mystery of reproduction in the deep. Male anglerfish permanently fuse to females and become parasites. In the vast darkness of the deep ocean, where finding a mate is an almost impossible challenge, male anglerfish have evolved one of the strangest reproductive strategies in nature, permanently fusing their bodies to a female when they find one, their tissues merging together until the male becomes nothing more than a source of sperm attached to her body. The male bites into the female's skin, and slowly his body degenerates, his organs failing one by one until only his reproductive tissue remains, fed by her bloodstream, ready to fertilize her eggs whenever she is ready to spawn. Some females have been found with multiple males fused to their bodies, tiny remnants of what were once independent creatures. It is a love so complete that it becomes absorption, two lives becoming one. In the deep, where encounters are rare, commitment becomes permanent and total. Some deep-sea octopuses guard their eggs for years without eating. In the cold darkness of the deep ocean, where temperatures hover just above freezing and metabolic processes slow to a crawl, some remarkable species of octopus have adapted to guard their developing eggs for years at a time, never leaving them unprotected, never eating, slowly wasting away as they pour all their remaining energy into ensuring their offspring survive. The mother positions herself over her clutch of eggs, keeping them clean and oxygenated with gentle movements of her arms, protecting them from predators and parasites while her own body slowly consumes itself. By the time the eggs finally hatch, she has given everything she had, and she drifts away to die soon after her young emerge into the cold darkness. It is the ultimate sacrifice, a life given entirely for the next generation. In the deep ocean, motherhood can mean everything. One deep-sea octopus was observed brooding her eggs for over 4 years. Scientists observing a deep-sea octopus off the coast of California documented what may be the longest brooding period of any known animal, watching as a single female guarded her clutch of eggs for over 4.5 years, never once leaving them to feed, her body visibly deteriorating over the countless months of her vigil. The researchers returned again and again to the same spot, finding her in the same position, her arms wrapped protectively around her eggs as they slowly developed in the cold water. And when the eggs finally hatched, the tiny octopuses emerged fully formed and ready to survive on their own. The mother, her purpose fulfilled, was never seen again. She had spent more than 4 years in one place, devoted entirely and completely to her unborn young. Her patience was measured not in days, but in seasons upon seasons of silent waiting. Deep-sea creatures often release millions of eggs because survival rates are so low. In the vast emptiness of the deep ocean, where predators lurk in every shadow and food is desperately scarce, many creatures have evolved to release enormous numbers of eggs, millions upon millions scattered into the darkness in the hope that a tiny fraction might survive to adulthood and carry on the species. A single deep-sea fish might release several million eggs in her entire lifetime. Knowing that most will be eaten, many will simply fail to develop properly, and only a handful might live long enough to reproduce themselves. This strategy of overwhelming numbers is a response to the harsh mathematics of survival in an environment where the odds are stacked against every individual. They cannot protect their young, so they produce enough that some will inevitably survive. It is reproduction through sheer and remarkable abundance. In the deep ocean, numbers are a form of hope. Some deep-sea fish carry their young in their mouths. In the deep ocean, where predators are everywhere and unguarded eggs rarely survive, some species of fish have evolved to carry their developing young in the safest place they can imagine, inside their own mouths, where the eggs can develop protected from the dangers of the open water all around them. The devoted parent fish cannot eat during this brooding period, holding the precious cargo carefully in its own mouth for weeks or even months at a time, occasionally rotating them gently to ensure they receive enough oxygen, never swallowing despite the constant presence of potential food. When the young finally hatch, they emerge directly from their parent's mouth, already developed enough to have a chance at survival in the hostile world around them. It is protection taken to an intimate extreme. The parent literally holds its children's future between its jaws. Certain species are hermaphrodites because finding mates in the dark is so rare. In the vast emptiness of the deep ocean, where creatures may go their entire lives without encountering another of their species, some animals have evolved to be hermaphrodites, possessing both male and female reproductive organs so that any encounter with another individual can result in reproduction regardless of the other's sex. This remarkable and elegant adaptation dramatically increases the chances of successful mating in an environment where finding a partner is a matter of pure chance across enormous distances of dark water. When two of these creatures encounter each other, both can become pregnant, doubling the reproductive output of the encounter and ensuring that the rare meeting produces the maximum possible number of offspring. They have solved the problem of loneliness through biological flexibility. In the deep, where encounters are precious, every meeting must count. And from the mysteries of birth, we drift toward the creatures that rise and fall with the tides of darkness. The daily vertical migration of deep-sea creatures is the largest movement of life on Earth. Every evening, as the sun sets and darkness falls across the surface of the ocean, billions upon billions of creatures begin rising from the deep, swimming upward through hundreds of meters of water to feed in the productive surface layers under cover of night. And every morning, as light returns to the world above, they descend again into the safety of the darkness below. This daily vertical migration involves more biomass than any other movement of life on the planet, a massive pulse of creatures rising and falling with the rhythm of day and night, carrying nutrients and energy between the sunlit surface and the lightless depths. It happens every single day, across every ocean, a movement so vast that it can be detected by sonar. The ocean breathes with life, rising and falling like a slow heartbeat. The deep is never truly still. Billions of creatures rise to the surface each night to feed and descend at dawn. As night falls over the ocean, a silent army begins its ascent. Billions of small fish, squid, shrimp, and jellyfish rising from the mesopelagic zone toward the surface where food is abundant, and the protective darkness provides refuge from visual predators that hunt by sight alone. They feed through the night, consuming plankton and small prey in the productive upper waters, and as the first light of dawn begins to brighten the eastern horizon, they reverse their journey, sinking back into the protective darkness below before the day hunters can find them. This nightly pilgrimage happens with clockwork regularity, synchronized not by any communication, but by the simple truth that light means danger and darkness means opportunity. They follow the edge of night across the world. The deep receives them back each morning and releases them again each evening as the light fades. Lanternfish are among the most numerous vertebrates on the planet. In the mesopelagic zone, where the last traces of sunlight fade into darkness, swarm the lanternfish, small creatures no larger than a human finger, yet so numerous that they make up a significant portion of the ocean's total fish biomass. Their bodies are studded with photophores, tiny light-producing organs that create patterns unique to each species, allowing them to find mates and communicate in the darkness while confusing predators with their glowing displays. Every night, countless billions of lanternfish rise toward the surface to feed on plankton, and every morning they descend again into the safety of the deep, participants in the largest migration on Earth. Despite their extraordinary abundance, they are rarely seen by human eyes, living their entire lives in the dim middle waters of the ocean. They are the hidden multitude of the sea. Their numbers are beyond easy comprehension. This migration moves nutrients from the surface to the deep. The daily vertical migration of billions of creatures does more than simply move animals up and down through the water column. It creates a powerful biological pump that transfers nutrients from the productive surface waters into the nutrient-poor depths below. Creatures that feed at the surface at night carry those nutrients down with them when they descend at dawn, releasing them into the deep through their waste products, their deaths, and the predators that consume them at depth. This constant cycling of material between the sunlit surface and the lightless abyss helps sustain life throughout the entire ocean, connecting two worlds that would otherwise be completely separate. The migrants are messengers between realms, carrying the energy of the sun into places it can never reach. They link the world of light to the world of darkness every single day. Some creatures travel hundreds of meters each night and each morning. For a small fish or shrimp, traveling hundreds of meters twice a day represents an extraordinary feat of endurance, the equivalent of a human running a marathon before breakfast and another before bed, day after day without rest or recovery. Yet this is exactly what billions of deep-sea creatures do, swimming steadily upward as darkness falls to reach the food-rich surface waters, then descending again as dawn approaches, sometimes covering distances of 500 meters or more in each direction through the dark water. The journey is driven by the simple calculation that the benefits of surface feeding outweigh the costs of the commute, and by the equally simple truth that being caught in the open during daylight means death. They spend their nights feeding and their days hiding. Their lives are measured by the rhythm of light and darkness. The migration helps regulate carbon by pulling it down into the deep. When creatures feed at the surface on carbon-rich plankton and then descend into the deep to rest, defecate, or die, they carry that carbon with them, effectively removing it from the surface waters and sequestering it in the deep ocean where it may remain for centuries or even longer. This biological carbon pump is one of the ocean's most important contributions to global climate regulation, pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and locking it away in the depths far below. Without this daily migration, more carbon would remain at the surface and in the atmosphere, and our climate would be different than it is today. These tiny creatures, in their nightly journeys, are helping to regulate the planet's temperature. Their movements have consequences far beyond the boundaries of the sea. The deep ocean stores what the migrants carry down. Many deep-sea creatures remain hidden during the day to avoid predators. In the ocean, light means visibility, and visibility means danger, which is why so many deep-sea creatures spend the daylight hours hiding in the protective darkness far below, waiting patiently for night to fall before venturing upward to feed on the abundant surface waters. This simple but effective strategy shapes the behavior of countless species, from tiny copepods to large squid, all timing their activities to the cycle of light and darkness that penetrates the upper layers of the sea. During the day, the mesopelagic zone is a place of stillness and quiet hiding, creatures suspended in the water column or tucked away in the darkness, conserving their precious energy and avoiding the eyes of visual predators that hunt by sight. When evening comes, the ocean stirs, the hidden emerge, and the night feeding begins. Light is the master they all obey. And now, as these truths settle softly around you, take a breath and feel the weight of your body being held wherever you rest. Let your eyelids grow heavy if they wish. Let your thoughts scatter and dissolve like particles sinking through dark water. The hatchetfish uses light organs to match the faint glow above and hide its silhouette. The hatchetfish, named for its thin, blade-like body, lives in the twilight zone where faint light still filters down from above, and it has evolved a remarkable strategy to avoid being seen by predators looking upward from below. Its underside is covered with photophores that produce a soft blue-green light, matching the dim glow filtering down from the surface, effectively erasing its silhouette against the light above. This counter-illumination camouflage makes the hatchetfish nearly invisible to any predator trying to spot its dark shape against the brighter waters above. The fish adjusts the intensity of its light production carefully to match the changing conditions, dimmer on cloudy days, brighter when the sun is strong. It hides by glowing, erasing itself with light rather than shadow. In the twilight zone, the best way to disappear is to become part of the glow. Counter-illumination is a camouflage strategy used by many deep-sea species. In the twilight zone, where faint light still penetrates from above, many creatures have evolved the same solution to the problem of being silhouetted against the brighter waters overhead, producing their own light to match the glow above and erase their shadows. This strategy, called counter-illumination, is found in fish, squid, shrimp, and many other animals that live in the mesopelagic zone, all independently arriving at the same elegant and effective solution to the challenge of hiding in a world where some light remains. The photophores on their undersides are precisely controlled to produce exactly the right intensity and color to blend seamlessly with the light filtering down from the surface. They wear their camouflage as living light. Counter-illumination proves that the same problems produce the same answers across species. The Cookiecutter shark takes round bites from much larger animals. The Cookiecutter shark is a small but fearsome deep-sea predator with an unusual and highly effective hunting strategy, approaching much larger animals such as whales, dolphins, and large fish, attaching to their flesh with its sucker-like lips, and then spinning its body rapidly to carve out a perfectly circular plug of meat before swimming away into the darkness. The wounds left behind are round craters found on a variety of ocean creatures, from tuna to great white sharks, testimony to its bold approach to feeding. This small shark lives in the deep during the day and rises toward the surface at night, using bioluminescent photophores on its underside to lure prey close enough to bite. It takes what it needs and then leaves the rest, never taking more than necessary. The Cookiecutter is remarkable proof that size does not determine a predator's success in the lightless depths. The frilled shark has remained almost unchanged for millions of years. Swimming through the deep Atlantic and Pacific, the frilled shark looks like a creature from prehistoric times, and in many ways it is, its body plan having changed little over tens of millions of years since its ancestors first evolved in the ancient oceans of the distant past. With its elongated, eel-like body, primitive jaw structure full of needle-like teeth, and 6 pairs of frilly gill slits that give it its name, the frilled shark represents an ancient lineage that has persisted while countless others vanished entirely from the fossil record. It hunts by ambush, coiling its body like a snake before striking at passing prey with surprising speed, capturing squid and fish in its rows of backward-pointing teeth. Time seems to have passed this creature by entirely. The deep has been its unchanging home for eons. It is a living fossil, proof that some designs need no improvement. Coelacanths were thought to be extinct until one was discovered alive in 1938. For many millions of years, coelacanths were known only from fossils, their ancient lineage thought to have disappeared along with the dinosaurs, until a living specimen was hauled up in a fishing net off the coast of South Africa in 1938, shocking the scientific world and challenging everything we thought we knew about extinction. These large, lobe-finned fish live in deep underwater caves and crevices, emerging at night to hunt for fish and squid, their four fleshy fins moving in a pattern remarkably similar to the walking motion of four-legged animals, a hint at the ancient connection between fish and the creatures that would eventually walk on land. Finding a coelacanth alive was like meeting a dinosaur, a messenger from deep time still swimming in modern oceans. They had been hiding in the deep all along. The ocean keeps its secrets, revealing them only when it chooses. And from living fossils, we turn toward the strange and beautiful forms of the abyss. Glass sponges build skeletons from silica that can last thousands of years. In the cold, still waters of the deep ocean, glass sponges construct their bodies from silica, the same material that makes up sand and glass, weaving intricate lattice structures so delicate and beautiful that they seem more like artwork than animal skeletons. These structures can persist for thousands of years after the sponge itself has died, the silica framework remaining on the seafloor as a testament to the creature that built it, sometimes providing habitat for other organisms long after its creator has passed. The glass sponge filters food particles from the water with remarkable efficiency, pumping great volumes of seawater through its porous body and extracting the nutrients it needs to survive. It lives slowly and it dies slowly, building something that outlasts it by millennia. In the deep, some creatures leave monuments that endure far longer than their lives. The sea spider has legs so long and thin it breathes through them. The sea spider of the deep ocean is a creature of remarkable extremes, its body so small and its legs so long and thin that it has no room for conventional respiratory organs, instead absorbing oxygen directly through the thin walls of its elongated limbs as it crawls slowly across the dark and utterly silent seafloor. These bizarre creatures look like something from another world entirely, all legs and almost no body, moving with a strange mechanical grace through the darkness of the deep. Some species grow to remarkable sizes in the cold depths, their metabolism so slow that they can exist on minimal oxygen, their thin bodies distributed so efficiently that every part can breathe. They are experiments in minimalism, proof that a creature can reduce itself to little more than legs and still survive. In the deep ocean, even the most alien forms can find a way to exist. Deep sea corals grow slowly, but can live for thousands of years. Unlike their shallow water relatives that rely on sunlight and symbiotic algae, deep sea corals survive in complete darkness, filtering particles from the water with their tiny polyps and growing at rates so slow that a colony might add only millimeters in a year. Some specimens have been dated at over 4,000 years old, making them among the oldest living animals on Earth, silent witnesses to millennia of ocean history recorded in their growth rings. These ancient organisms create complex habitats that shelter countless other species, their slow-growing branches becoming homes for fish, crustaceans, and countless invertebrates that depend on the structure they provide. They build their worlds one tiny increment at a time. In their patience, they have outlived civilizations. The deep sea coral knows no rush, only the slow accumulation of years. The blobfish looks ordinary in its natural habitat, but distorts when brought to the surface. The blobfish has become famous for photographs that make it look like a sad, gelatinous mass, but this appearance is a distortion caused by the trauma of being brought to the surface from the crushing depths where it lives. In its natural habitat, at depths where the pressure is hundreds of times greater than at the surface, the blobfish looks like a fairly ordinary fish, its body perfectly adapted to the extreme environment it calls home. The gelatinous flesh that seems so strange to us is actually an elegant solution to the problem of maintaining buoyancy at extreme pressure, allowing the fish to float just above the seafloor without expending energy on swimming. It has been unfairly mocked for something that is not its true form. In the deep, the blobfish is exactly what it needs to be, we simply see it out of its element. The fanfin sea devil has bioluminescent fishing rods extending from its head. The fanfin sea devil, a type of deep-sea anglerfish, takes the fishing lure strategy to an extreme, with not just one but multiple bioluminescent appendages extending from its head, each one tipped with a glowing bulb that can be waved and flicked to attract curious prey in the darkness. These elaborate displays are the result of millions of years of evolution in a world where food is scarce and every advantage matters, the fish essentially carrying its own constellation of lights to draw in unsuspecting victims. When prey approaches close enough, the sea devil's enormous mouth opens and engulfs it in a fraction of a second, the trap springing with deadly efficiency. It is a patient predator, drifting through the darkness with its lights gently glowing and beckoning. The fish does not chase its food. It lures food to itself and waits. Deep-sea anemones anchor themselves to the soft sediment of the seafloor. While their shallow water relatives attach to hard rocks and corals, deep-sea anemones have adapted to life on the soft sediments of the abyssal plains, their bases modified to anchor in the ooze, while their tentacles sway gently in the currents, waiting patiently to capture any food particles that drift within reach. Some species can retract completely into the sediment when threatened, disappearing from view in moments and leaving no trace of their presence on the surface. They are patient hunters, their tentacles armed with stinging cells that can paralyze small prey, waiting in the darkness for food to come to them rather than actively seeking it out. They have made homes where there seemed to be nothing to hold on to. In the deep, life finds ways to anchor itself even in the softest ground, turning the sediment itself into a foundation. And now we drift toward the places where the abyss falls even deeper. The Mariana Trench is the deepest known point in the ocean. At the western edge of the Pacific Ocean, the seafloor drops away into a crescent-shaped abyss that reaches deeper than any other place on Earth. The Mariana Trench, a wound in the planet's crust where one tectonic plate is being forced beneath another, and the ocean floor plunges into the mantle below. This trench stretches for over 2,500 kilometers, its walls descending into pressures so extreme that the water itself becomes denser, the darkness absolute, and the conditions seemingly hostile to all life. Yet life is there, persisting in conditions that would crush any unprotected human vessel, proof that the boundaries of the habitable world extend far beyond what we once imagined. The Mariana Trench is the ultimate frontier of the deep, a place of profound and humbling mystery. It is the closest we can get to another world while still standing on Earth. Challenger Deep lies nearly 11,000 meters below the surface. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench lies Challenger Deep, the deepest point in all the world's oceans, where the seafloor sits nearly 11,000 meters below the waves, a distance so vast that if you placed Mount Everest in this trench, its peak would still be more than 2 kilometers underwater. The pressure at this depth equals over 1,000 times the pressure at the surface, enough to crush most submarines and destroy any equipment not specifically designed to withstand such extremes. Yet even here, in this most remote and hostile corner of the planet, life has been found, single-celled organisms and small crustaceans that have adapted to conditions that seem impossible for living things. Challenger Deep is named for the ship that first measured its remarkable depth over a century ago. It remains a place few have ever seen and fewer still truly understand. Fewer people have visited the deepest ocean than have walked on the moon. While a dozen astronauts have walked on the surface of the moon, fewer people have descended to the bottom of Challenger Deep, a fact that speaks to the extraordinary difficulty of reaching the deepest parts of our own planet. The pressure at such depths requires specialized vessels built from materials that can withstand forces that would crush any ordinary submarines instantly, and the journey down takes hours of slow descent through absolute and total darkness. Those who have made the trip describe a world of profound and eerie stillness, the seafloor covered in pale sediment, the water cold and still and utterly silent. The deepest ocean remains more mysterious than outer space in many ways. We know less about the trenches than we know about the surface of the moon. Our own planet still holds secrets we have barely begun to explore. Even at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, life persists. When the first explorers reached the bottom of Challenger Deep, they were astonished to find evidence of life in a place that seemed too extreme to support anything living. And subsequent expeditions have confirmed that microbes, small crustaceans, and other organisms have colonized even this most remote and hostile environment. These creatures have adapted to pressures that would destroy most life, metabolisms that function in near-freezing temperatures, and an existence sustained by the slow rain of organic particles drifting down from the world above. Their presence proves that life's boundaries extend further than we ever imagined, that there is no depth too great, no pressure too crushing, no darkness too complete for living things to find a way. Life has claimed even the deepest places. It refuses to acknowledge any limit we might try to set for it. Tiny single-celled xenophytophores dominate the deepest seafloors. On the abyssal plains and in the Hadal trenches, where the seafloor stretches out in darkness like an endless desert, single-celled organisms called xenophytophores can be found in extraordinary abundance. They're fragile tests, shells built from sediment particles glued together, dotting the soft ooze like strange alien cities. Despite being technically just one cell, some xenophytophores can grow several centimeters across, giants of the microbial world that dominate environments too extreme for most other life. They feed by trapping particles from the water and sediment, filtering the sparse nutrients of the deep with remarkable efficiency, and their presence alters the seafloor around them, creating microhabitats for other tiny organisms. They are proof that size is not necessary for success. In the deepest places on Earth, single cells have become the dominant form of life. One cell can rule a world. Hadal snailfish survive pressure that would crush most submarines. In the Hadal zone, at crushing depths exceeding 8,000 meters, the snailfish has become the deepest living fish ever recorded, thriving at pressures that would instantly destroy any submarine not specifically designed for extreme depth exploration. These pale, ghostly fish have bodies that seem almost gelatinous, their cells filled with special compounds that prevent the crushing pressure from collapsing their proteins and destroying their delicate internal structures. They glide slowly through the absolute darkness, feeding on the small crustaceans that gather around natural food falls, their metabolism slowed by the cold and the immense weight of the water pressing above them. They have found a niche where nothing else can compete. The pressure that would kill most life has become their protector instead. At the bottom of the trenches, the snailfish has claimed territory that belongs to it alone. And from the crushing depths, we rise gently toward creatures of unexpected intelligence. Octopuses can solve puzzles, open jars, and recognize individual humans. In laboratory studies, octopuses have demonstrated remarkable intelligence, learning to solve complex mazes, unscrew jars to reach food inside, escape from seemingly secure tanks, and even distinguish between individual human researchers, treating some with curiosity and others with apparent disdain by squirting water at them. Their intelligence evolved along a completely different path from our own, their large brains structured nothing like mammalian brains, yet arriving at similar capacities for learning, problem-solving, and perhaps even play. Each of their 8 arms contains a dense network of neurons that can operate somewhat independently, giving them a distributed intelligence that we are only beginning to understand. They think in ways we cannot fully comprehend. The octopus is proof that complex minds can arise from unexpected places. Intelligence has many forms. Deep-sea cephalopods may have complex problem-solving abilities we have yet to observe. While we have studied the intelligence of shallow-water octopuses and cuttlefish in laboratories and aquariums, their deep-sea relatives remain largely mysterious, glimpsed only briefly from submarines and remotely operated vehicles before they vanish into the darkness. These creatures may possess complex behaviors and problem-solving abilities that we have never had the opportunity to observe, their lives playing out in the abyss, far from our limited windows into their world. What cognitive abilities might evolve in creatures living in total darkness, in a world where encounters with others of their kind are rare, where patience and efficiency mean everything? We can only guess at the thoughts of these deep-dwelling cephalopods floating somewhere below us in the darkness. Their minds remain a mystery. The deep keeps its secrets well. Some cuttlefish communicate through rapid color changes. Cuttlefish possess the ability to change their skin color and pattern almost instantaneously, using this remarkable talent not just for camouflage, but for communication, displaying their moods, intentions, and messages through rippling waves of color that pass across their bodies like thoughts made visible. A courting male might show one pattern to attract a female, while simultaneously displaying a different pattern on his other side to deceive a rival, his body literally telling two different stories at once. This visual language is complex and nuanced, with different signals for aggression, submission, courtship, and warning, a conversation happening in colors rather than sounds. They speak with their skin. For creatures that live in a world where sound carries poorly and light is precious, visual communication has become an art form. Their bodies are their words. Nautiluses have survived nearly unchanged for over 500 million years. The Nautilus is a living fossil, a creature whose basic design has remained virtually unchanged since before the dinosaurs, before fish developed jaws, before life had even begun to colonize the land. These ancient cephalopods drift through the water on jets of expelled water, their beautiful spiral shells providing buoyancy control as they rise and sink through the water column, hunting for prey with their many simple tentacles and their primitive eyes that lack lenses. They once ruled the ancient seas in vast numbers, but now only a few species remain, living relics of an age we can only imagine, carrying 500 million years of history in their elegant shells. They have outlasted nearly everything that ever lived. The Nautilus is a message from deep time, still swimming through our modern oceans. Some designs need never change. Deep-sea fish have been observed using tools and coordinating behavior. Recent observations from remotely operated vehicles have captured remarkable and surprising footage of deep-sea fish exhibiting behaviors that suggest far greater cognitive complexity than we once assumed, including apparent tool use and coordinated hunting strategies that require communication and cooperation between individuals. Some species have been seen rubbing against coral or rocks in ways that suggest deliberate use of these surfaces for grooming, while others appear to hunt in pairs or groups, driving prey toward each other with what looks like intentional coordination. These behaviors challenge our assumptions about fish intelligence and force us to reconsider what kinds of minds might be possible in the deep. The darkness hides more than we expected. Even in the abyss, creatures may be thinking in ways we never imagined. The giant Pacific octopus has more neurons in its arms than in its brain. The giant Pacific octopus possesses a remarkable distributed nervous system, with approximately 500 million neurons throughout its body, and the majority of these are located not in the central brain, but in the 8 arms, each of which can operate with a degree of independence that challenges our understanding of what it means to think and process information. Each arm can taste, touch, and respond to its environment without waiting for instructions from the central brain, allowing the octopus to process information locally and react with speed and precision. This distributed intelligence is unlike anything found in vertebrate animals, representing a completely different evolutionary solution to the challenge of coordinating a complex and flexible body in the darkness of the deep ocean. The octopus thinks with its whole body. It is 8 minds in one. Intelligence takes forms we never expected. And now we drift toward the boundaries of what we know and what remains undiscovered. Scientists estimate that most deep-sea species have yet to be discovered. Despite decades of exploration, scientists believe that the majority of species living in the deep ocean remain completely unknown to science, their existence unrecorded, their forms unseen, their behaviors unobserved, waiting in the darkness for the day when human technology finally reaches their remote habitats. Some estimates suggest that 90% or more of deep-sea species have yet to be described, a vast hidden biodiversity dwelling in the largest habitat on Earth, beyond the reach of our lights and cameras. Every expedition brings back samples that include new species, sometimes dozens at a time, hinting at the extraordinary diversity that must exist across the entire ocean floor. The deep is a frontier we have barely begun to explore, vast and silent and full of wonder. Most of what lives there remains unknown to us. The darkness holds countless secrets still waiting to be revealed. Each deep-sea expedition returns with creatures never seen before. When research vessels lower their nets and sampling equipment into the deep ocean, they almost invariably bring back species that have never been seen before, organisms so new to science that they have no names, their relationships to other life forms still to be determined by careful taxonomic study. This is not the exception, but the rule in deep-sea research, a testament to how little we have explored and how much remains to be discovered in the vast darkness below the sunlit surface. Some of these new species are closely related to known animals, while others are so strange that they require the creation of entirely new categories to classify them properly. The deep ocean is an endless source of wonder, surprise, and scientific discovery that continues to reshape our understanding of life itself. Every dive into the abyss reveals new forms of life. We are still learning what exists beneath the waves. And here, in this pause, let the mystery of the unknown settle around you. There is no need to understand everything this moment. Breathe slowly, let go of any thoughts that feel heavy, and let your body rest deeper into the stillness. The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet, yet we have mapped less than 20% of the seafloor. Despite covering more than 2/3 of Earth's surface, the ocean remains largely unmapped and unexplored, with less than 20% of the seafloor surveyed in any detail. Vast expanses of underwater terrain about which we know almost nothing, hidden beneath miles of water and darkness. We have better maps of the Moon and Mars than we do of our own ocean floor, the contours of those distant worlds more familiar to us than the mountains and valleys that lie beneath the waves of our home planet. This ignorance is not due to lack of interest, but to the sheer difficulty of exploring a realm so hostile, so dark, and so immense that it dwarfs every other environment on Earth combined. The deep remains our greatest frontier. There is more mystery beneath our waves than in all the skies above. Our own planet still waits to be discovered. Remotely operated vehicles allow scientists to explore without risking human lives. The invention of remotely operated vehicles has transformed deep-sea exploration, allowing scientists to send camera-equipped robots into the crushing darkness, while operators remain safely on ships at the surface, controlling robotic arms, collecting samples and observing creatures in their natural habitats without the risk and expense of manned submersibles. These machines can stay submerged for far longer than any human-occupied vessel, streaming live video back to researchers who can direct exploration in real time, following interesting specimens and investigating features of the seafloor that would otherwise remain unseen. They have become our eyes and hands in a world we cannot enter ourselves. The deep opens to us through machines that fear no pressure and need no air. Every dive brings us closer to understanding a world that was hidden for all of human history. Many deep-sea creatures die when brought to the surface due to pressure changes. The creatures of the deep have evolved to survive at pressures that would crush any unprotected human, their bodies perfectly adapted to the weight of miles of water pressing down upon them. And when they are brought rapidly to the surface, the sudden release of that pressure causes devastating damage, gases expanding in their tissues, organs failing, bodies deforming in ways that make them almost unrecognizable. The blobfish is perhaps the most famous example of this distortion, a fish that looks perfectly normal in its deep-sea habitat but becomes a sad, gelatinous mass when the pressure is released. This makes studying deep-sea life extraordinarily difficult, for we cannot simply bring these creatures into our world without destroying them. We must meet them where they live. If we want to see them as they truly are, we must visit them in their darkness. New species are sometimes named after the submersibles that discovered them. In the naming of new deep-sea species, scientists have honored the vehicles and expeditions that made their discovery possible, giving creatures names that connect them forever to the technology that brought them into human knowledge. Species names might reference the submersible that first recorded them, the research vessel that carried the expedition, or the scientists who piloted the craft into the darkness where the creature was found. This tradition creates a link between the biological diversity of the deep and the human ingenuity that allows us to explore it, each name a small and lasting monument to the partnership between curiosity and engineering. These names become part of the creature's identity forever. The history of our exploration is written into the names we give. Discovery and what is discovered become intertwined. Deep-sea mining threatens ecosystems we have only begun to understand. As demand for minerals grows and terrestrial sources become increasingly harder to find, attention has turned to the mineral-rich nodules and crusts that cover vast areas of the deep seafloor, deposits that have formed over millions of years and now attract the interest of mining companies eager to extract their valuable metals and resources. But extracting these resources would devastate ecosystems we barely understand, destroying habitats that took eons to form, stirring up sediment plumes that could travel hundreds of kilometers, and potentially driving species to extinction before we even know they existed. The deep sea is not an empty void waiting to be exploited. It is a living world with its own inhabitants and its own worth. We must decide whether our hunger for resources is worth destroying worlds we have barely begun to know. And from the frontier of exploration, we turn to the final wonders of this hidden world. The deep sea holds medicines and compounds that may one day cure human diseases. In the unique chemistry of deep-sea organisms, scientists have discovered compounds with remarkable properties, substances that fight cancer, combat bacterial infections, and perform biological functions unlike anything found in terrestrial or shallow water life. Creatures that survive in extreme environments have evolved chemical solutions to challenges that may prove useful in human medicine, their strange biochemistry holding clues to treatments we have not yet imagined. Research has already yielded promising drugs from deep-sea sponges, corals, and microbes, and the vast majority of deep-sea life remains unstudied, suggesting that many more discoveries await. The deep holds potential cures for diseases that torment us. In protecting these ecosystems, we may be protecting medicines we do not yet know we need. The darkness below may one day save lives above. Bacteria near hydrothermal vents have taught us new possibilities for life. The remarkable discovery of life thriving at hydrothermal vents, in temperatures and chemical environments that should have been lethal, revolutionized our understanding of where life can exist, proving that photosynthesis is not the only foundation for an ecosystem, and that life can flourish in conditions far more extreme than we ever imagined possible. These chemosynthetic bacteria and the complex communities they support have dramatically expanded our search for life beyond Earth, suggesting that similar environments on ocean moons like Europa and Enceladus might harbor their own living things. The deep sea taught us to look for life in places we never would have considered before. Vent ecosystems changed everything we thought we knew about biology. Life, it seems, is far more creative and resilient than we dared to hope. The deep ocean helps regulate the planet's climate and oxygen cycles. Far from being a lifeless void separate from the systems that support life on the surface, the deep ocean plays a truly crucial role in regulating Earth's climate and chemistry, absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, storing vast amounts of heat that would otherwise warm the surface, and participating in the global circulation patterns that distribute warmth and nutrients around the planet. The creatures that live in the deep, through their daily migrations and their roles in biological cycles, help move carbon and other elements between the surface and the abyss, contributing to a balance that has helped maintain stable conditions for millions of years. The deep ocean truly protects us in ways we are only beginning to understand and appreciate. Its health is connected to our own in countless unseen ways. What happens in the darkness affects everything that lives in the light. Deep-sea creatures remind us that life can exist where we least expect it. Every discovery in the deep ocean has expanded our understanding of where and how life can possibly exist. Creatures thriving in crushing pressure, in total darkness, in temperatures near freezing and near boiling, in environments saturated with chemicals that would kill most other organisms with ease. These extremophiles, as scientists call them, are living proof that life is far more adaptable, far more creative, and far more persistent than we ever imagined, finding remarkable ways to survive in conditions we once thought entirely impossible. They remind us that the universe may be far more full of life than our limited perspective suggests. If life can exist in the deep ocean, perhaps it exists in places we have not yet learned to look. The deep teaches us to never underestimate the remarkable and tenacious power of living things. The quiet life of the deep continues, even as you lie here listening. As you rest, somewhere beneath thousands of meters of dark ocean water, the creatures of the deep are continuing their slow, patient lives, anglerfish waiting with glowing lures, giant squid drifting through the darkness on the hunt, bioluminescent jellyfish pulsing with soft light, tube worms swaying near hydrothermal vents, and countless unnamed things going about their business in places no human eye has ever seen or may ever see. The deep does not pause for our attention or our understanding. It simply continues, as it has for millions of years, a world unto itself, complete and whole and endlessly fascinating. You can close your eyes knowing that the deep remains, that its creatures persist, that its mysteries endure, waiting for those who wish to discover them. The ocean breathes below, quiet and eternal, even as you drift into sleep. And so our journey through the quiet depths of the ocean draws softly to a close. We have drifted from the sunless zones where light cannot reach, through forests of bioluminescent creatures glowing in eternal night. We have visited giants whose bodies move slowly through crushing pressure, witnessed hunters with teeth like glass needles, and floated beside creatures so strange they seem to belong to another world. From the scalding waters of hydrothermal vents to the freezing silence of the deepest trenches, we have glimpsed a hidden universe beneath the waves. If these soothing facts have helped you unwind, perhaps consider subscribing so you never miss a calm journey. There are more wonders waiting in the darkness, both of the ocean and of the mind, and we would be glad to have you here when the next exploration begins. Share this quiet space with someone who needs rest, and know that together we are building a community of curious sleepers, one calm night at a time. Right now, as you lie here, the deep-sea creatures we have explored continue their silent lives beneath miles of dark water. Your body, too, is settling into the rhythm of rest, your breath slowing, your muscles softening, your mind releasing the weight of the day. The same water that fills the abyss flows through you, connects you to every ocean on this planet, and in that connection there is peace. If your eyes feel heavy, let them close. There is nothing left to see. Let your breath become slow and even, like the steady current that flows through the deepest trenches. Feel your shoulders release, feel your jaw soften, feel your hands grow still. The day is over. The only thing left is rest. Tonight, as you sleep, the deep sea continues its quiet work. Bioluminescent creatures are flashing their silent signals through the darkness. Marine snow is falling through miles of black water. Giant squid are drifting through canyons no human has ever seen. Hydrothermal vents are warming the waters around them, sustaining life where no sunlight reaches. You are a small, warm presence within this vast and watery world, peacefully resting among the wonders. Sleep well, sweet dreams, and may you carry with you the quiet knowledge that even in the deepest darkness, life finds a way to glow. This has been Drowsy Discovery. Good night.